My name is Stuart Dill. My wife and I have been married, my wife Kayla and I have been married for 5 going on 6 years. We live in southwest Missouri, just a little north of Springfield. And currently we run a cow-calf business along with, we raise some horses and we run a few stocker cattle. 6 years ago, I came back to Missouri and moved to the farm full time. We built some chicken barns and in the chicken egg business, technically, we sell eggs, not chickens. But actually, we're in the process right now of trying to sell the chickens and the chicken barns and just get out of that business. So like I said, I came back 6 years ago. And 3 years ago, it was me and my dad, and obviously my grandpa was right here and pretty involved in everything. And in the summer of 2019, I buried my grandpa and my dad in a matter of 2 weeks. They died 11 days apart. So, well, my grandpa was 87 and, just kind of an old man. A lot of little health issues the last 2 years of his life. He was just up and down, and he'd have a good day and then he'd have 3 or 4 bad days. And, he had some cancer and stuff, but really it was just old age that finally got him, at 87 years old. And then, 11 days later, my dad, 54 years old, had a heart attack. We had met in the office that morning about 8:30 and kind of discussed where we were going that day. And then I got a phone call about noon asking where my dad was. And I was like, well, I don't know. And so I went back to his house and there he was. He was deceased on his bed, 54 years old, had a heart attack, just out of nowhere. I think, looking back, there was a lot of emotions, sadness, anger, helplessness, hopelessness. I mean, you kind of run through a little bit of everything. Some of them come and go quicker. Some of them last a little bit longer. But I think, as tough as it was, it wasn't so much about me. It was more, okay, how do I take care of my family and how do I lead everybody through this time of tragedy? I really had to put a lot of my own stuff on the back burner and on the shelf and just had to be there to, support everybody else. And, obviously, the obvious stuff is all of a sudden all the business decisions became mine in a matter of a few days. So not only was I had to lead my family and everybody else through this tragic time in our lives, but also I had to just, take on complete responsibility overnight. And I was pretty fortunate because my dad really had given me a lot of responsibility to begin with. I wasn't just a hired hand. I had the capabilities and the powers to make a lot of decisions to begin with. So it wasn't just this, oh my gosh, what do I do? It was like, all right, now's the time. You gotta step up and you gotta take it. So, the business decisions, along with all the emotional turmoil that was going on, it was, you just had to take it minute by minute and day by day and week by week and month by month. It was just this very slow process of, what's directly in front of us that we need to take care of right now. There's certainly a lot of lessons that he taught me that kind of applied to his generation, maybe not so much my generation. Like one of his big things was, you just figure out what works for you, and then you work as hard as you can. And, you work till midnight and you sleep, get up at 3 a.m. and start all over again. And my grandpa obviously had a lot of different life circumstances than I did. So I think, he always thought about things. He was very methodical about thinking about things and trying to play everything out in his head before he made a decision, which is a great quality. Now, I think the things that he had to think about are a little bit different than the things I have to think about. But certainly that process of just trying to think through everything and not making rash and quick decisions, but just taking your time to process things and think about, certain obstacles that you might not think about and making a decision. If I do this, what could go wrong? I think we all need to think about those things. So my grandpa was born in 1933. When he graduated high school, shortly after graduation, he was drafted for Korea. And so he went to the Army, never went overseas, stayed here in Missouri at Fort Leonard Wood on the Army base there, but was drafted to Fort Leonard Wood, did his time in the Army. When he got out of the Army, he was living here. Like I said, we're just north of Springfield, but it wasn't a very big town at that time. And, there weren't a lot of jobs. So a lot of what people his age did was they moved to Kansas City and got a job. So my grandparents moved to Kansas City, and I don't think they were there for quite 10 years. But anyways, they saved up a bunch of money and they bought their first farm back here in Dallas County, because that's really what Grandpa wanted to do. He wanted to be here on the farm, but he knew he had to go to the big city and work, save up some money. They bought their first farm, and for the first 2 years they owned it, they would just drive back on the weekends, work, trying to get the place cleaned up and ready to go. They still had their jobs in Kansas City. And so it's interesting. My grandpa moved back to Dallas County to farm full-time when he was 29 years old. And I moved back to Dallas County to live on the farm full-time when I was 29 years old. He had 2 kids. I was still, Kayla and I were together, but we weren't married then. So, he had kids and a family that he had to provide for. I was 29 years old, about to get married. So he moved back to Dallas County when he was 29, started dairy farming, and I can't remember how many cows he bought to start with. I think it was 20 maybe. Bought 20 dairy cows. Obviously, he'd had the farm for 2 years, and they moved back here to Dallas County and got started. Yeah. She's told me at times, she's like, well, you're so much better than you used to be, and I can really tell how these things are helping you and helping us. And so, yeah, she was able to see the way I was able to handle my emotions. And I'm not perfect, and nobody's ever going to be perfect, but I think emotions are just like anything else in life. You just get a little bit better every time. You're a little bit better, and it's just like your relationships. You just get a little bit better. Your relationships with your wife, with your family, with your kids. You get a little bit better over time, just like you do at making business decisions. I mean, yeah, I think we all wish we were Elon Musk and Mark Cuban, but they also didn't get there overnight. They just got a little bit better over time, and 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 so that's what I think. What it's all I think emotional intelligence is just about getting a little bit better when the emotions show up, because they're always going to show up. You're never going to get around it. And one of the struggles is we're by ourselves 90% of the time. So I mean, if we truly understood the addiction rate in this industry, it would probably be staggering. I mean, because I mean, you go to a sale barn and look in the back of pickups, there's no telling how many empty beer cans you would find. So I mean, how many people are drinking, 8-9 hours a day while they're, by themselves off in the pasture, working on something, but they're drinking beer. And who knows what other substance abuse is involved in this industry at a high level. And I think, yeah, a lot of people don't know how to do it, and we're by ourselves. So I would say the addiction rate in this industry is extremely high.